Evolutionary Underground Supplements, episode number 14. Today we're going to do an updated episode on N2Guard off cycle and how to utilize it. So, been getting a lot of questions about N2Guard, and people are saying, well, I'm off cycle, or people saying I'm not using steroids, I'm taking a couple of years off from steroids. N2Guard, how should I use it? Can I use a little less off cycle? A lot of people want to know what happens off cycle, what happens in your body off cycle. Let's say you've been using steroids for a few years off and on, and then you come off cycle. What happens during that year that you're off steroids? What happens to your organs? What happens to your reproductive system, your HPTA, your pituitary glands, your Leydig cells, your liver, kidneys, heart, brain, all that stuff. So we're gonna answer all these questions on here. We're gonna give you some of the latest information on what happens, so very, very lucky. We've got the experience, Mobster and I, we have almost 100 years of experience with this stuff. I've looked at thousands of blood work, and Mobster, we've looked at these logs of guys on the forums who've been logging this stuff on and off cycle. So we can give you a good sense of what you should look for in terms of everything. And we'll give you some really good tips. And N2Guard, at the end of the day, it's a really, really good support supplement, and it's one that works terrifically. Even the biggest skeptics of N2Guard, they'll use N2Guard and they'll be like, wow, this stuff works. Like I was skeptical, and I don't blame people for being skeptical. The supplement industry is very
that's fine. We want them to be, and then they go and prove it. Yeah.
This stuff works. So Mobster, I'll bring you in here. Tell us a little bit about N2BM and N2Guard.
Right, let's start with N2BM specifically, Steve. Right, so we talk about companies in the industry when we do different kinds of podcasts, and we say what makes a good company and so on and so forth. So absolutely, the length of time that company's been around is super important to me. It suggests that they sell a solid products in the case of N2BM, Need to Build Muscle. And that's number one. Number two is the reasons why. And funny enough, there are two products, but we're dealing with N2Guard today that really, in my mind, are the focus of why the company exists. So we've talked about the background of the original owner and how they were hardcore ex-military, and they kind of got into the optimal lifestyle. If I train really, really hard, what's the best food to eat? How do I best recover from training and so on? They wasn't trying to be Mr. Olympia, Steve. What they were trying to do, I suspect, was the ex-military stuff. They were keeping their conditioning on point. They were out there doing the crazy stuff with trail walks and running up mountains and all that kind of vibe, and burning thousands of calories. In fact, we've got a couple of local guys that are specific like that, ex-sergeant from the Army, a Royal Marine Commando trainer, a PC, and so on and so forth. And they're out there spreading the word and getting people to do the commando style training. Okay, so when you get really serious, you end up seeing some of these guys that are ultra distance runners. There's one fella that's in the news today, Steve, who's just walked around Africa or rode around Africa, something like that. These guys are borderline fucking psychos. But when you're doing this extreme stuff, you really need to be on point with your nutrition. You really need to be on point with your recovery. And what they were looking at specifically was, if I'm going to use even performance enhancing drugs, how can I boost my testosterone in the case of one of their products? And the other one was organ health, right? Because let's be honest, Steve, I'm thinking I even know the Victorian ultra distance stuff where they were walking 100 miles in 3 days. And a lot of them were, can't be honest, Steve, they were on various stimulants that blow your mind, early forms of methamphetamine, just to win bets and so on and so forth. And you can absolutely guarantee that this person, they've stressed the fuck out of their body with this ultra stuff, and secondly, with the methamphetamine. And then finally, of course, was they eating? Was they hydrating? No, it would all been done on the walk, and it was also in like 100 guineas and stuff. Now, in this day and age, we got people that are running across deserts. And trust me, even if you are having the best nutrition, the best hydration, you've got great sunblock and all the rest of it, your body is getting burnt like a motherfucker. And I mean that in terms of metabolic issues and so on and so forth. Now, we train. You and I train. Loads of our listeners train. They're hitting the gym with weights. They're doing runs. They're doing trail walks and so on and so forth. And you also got some of the lifestyle stuff, with regards to the clinics in the States, life extension. So what are you looking at? Is literally the wear and tear on your body with the use of PEDs, the wear and tear of the kind of training that we do, and I'm going to get into that in a little while, and all these kind of things. And these are the reasons why N2BM, with the original company owner and a new company guy now, these are the reasons why these products were created, and these are the reasons why these products are produced and sold today. There's also an element, and I'll touch on this briefly as well. We've discussed at other shows when we've talked about Need to Build Muscle, the difficulty with formulating a product like this to the levels that is required for it to be something that works the way that we know that it works. Steve touched upon something at the beginning of the show, and it was literally that we know of users of these N2Guard that have done blood tests, done and had medical examinations, and so on and so forth, to see what the impact of a cycle, on or off cycle, was on the body. And they've had measures in their blood tests that have indicated that the numbers have become more positive, i.e. better, healthier numbers when they've used N2Guard. That's not just me saying it. You can come onto the forum, you can search for the logs, and you can find people that will have before, during, and after blood tests not using N2Guard and then using N2Guard, and that's them. They're not sponsored, they're not being paid, they've literally paid for the product themselves, and that's the information they've posted up. As Steve said, they've gone from a non-believer to a believer. Right? Steve and I take the view, Steve's done way more blood tests than I have, but I would use N2Guard, especially on cycle, but of course we're discussing off cycle because I know how these ingredients work. When we talk about ingredients, as I will encourage the listener to quote unquote do your own research. Don't just take Steve and I's word for it, but take a random list of the ingredients that we're talking about, spend 10 or 15 minutes with each ingredient and see if it has the benefits that we're discussing. You will, because we've done it as pre-show research on previous shows. I don't even need to do it today, Steve, because I know that we've done it in the past. And I know specifically, just from the knowledge I already had, and then obviously the research that I've done of certain ingredients that stand out in my mind as products that will benefit you. And again, in today's example, both on and off cycle. Back to you.
N2BM, originally the way it came about was a little different, very, very different, actually, not a little bit, but very, very differently than other supplement companies. These supplement companies, they aim to mass produce supplements and garbage supplements. 99% of these supplements out there are garbage. The typical stuff, the multivitamins, garbage. Doesn't do shit. BCAAs, branched chain amino acids, garbage. Whey protein powder. It's garbage whey protein powder. It's low quality. It's not going to do anything but upset your stomach and give you the shits, So, and to be different, they came up with the idea, like, let's cater to steroid users, guys who use steroids, and people who need something more than a multivitamin or BCAA, or creatine even. And they came up with these products that they came out with, like N2Guard. These are amazing products, and they contain a lot of ingredients just in one bottle. 44 different ingredients in N2Guard, and that's what they wanted to come up with. They wanted to come up with products that cater to a different demographic that was being ignored. It's easy to market this other crap to 18 to 25-year-olds. Okay, that's the age group they're targeting. These supplement companies, they target them as much as they can, whether it be at these bodybuilding expos and then now it's social media. Now it's all social media. They target them on social media. Like every professional bodybuilder, they've got a link to some supplement line, and you click on the link, and it's some crappy supplements. Why? Why did they do that? Because they're being paid. They're being paid to endorse these products, and they don't use those products. They don't use those products themselves. They didn't get the way they got from these supplements. They got the way they got from using steroids. And number one, obviously, from their genetics. But and you get these 18 to 25-year-olds, they see that, like, wow, I want to look like him. I'm going to take that supplement. Then they take the supplement and they get very disappointed. And that's how it is. But it's okay because you know what? There's more 18 to 25-year-olds that are coming on that they can go after. They're not retaining their clientele. N2BM is different. 99% of people who buy N2BM products come back for more because their products actually work. You can tell they work. And you know, that's what supplement company is all about, and that's what they want to do. And it's not a profitable venture having that type of mentality. N2BM doesn't sponsor a bunch of bodybuilders and doesn't have bodybuilders go and market their products. That's never been their policy. And they go by word of mouth. They go by, look, people use it and they like it, and then they tell others about it, or they go by repeat customers. And N2BM repeat customers really is an amazing accomplishment. And they also combine that with excellent customer service as well. So you can expect when you place an order for N2BM products, you're going to get your order pretty quickly. And that's something that they also like to do as well. And that's where the company started from. It started from scratch, started with nothing, and they built it off of these types of products. They didn't build it off let's sell inferior products and have pro bodybuilders market it for us. I mean, it's like Mobster and I, look, we've been around the block a long time. Okay. Those of you younger guys who listen to this podcast, we love you guys. You guys are the future of bodybuilding. You may not be aware of this, but when you see these people on Instagram or whatever, they're in the jacuzzi with 5 different women, or they're driving a Lamborghini or something, that's marketing. Those women that they're in the jacuzzi with, they hire them from an agency to come down. They say, hey, we need you to sit in a jacuzzi with some dude for a few hours and get some pictures. We'll pay your women, $200 an hour to come out and do it. They're like, okay, we'll send you some women. That's what they do. Or Lamborghini. You can go rent a Lamborghini for the day. I mean, you can just Google, I want to rent a Lamborghini for the day. You pay whatever, 500 or 1,000, whatever it is, and you can rent a Lamborghini for the day, drive it around, take pictures, and all this stuff. That's what they do. It's marketing. And Mobster and I, we've been around the block. We know this, but a lot of you may not know this. N2BM doesn't do that. N2BM doesn't have their owner driving around in a Lamborghini. Okay. You know what their owner drives? He drives like a Honda. That's what he drives. A regular car. That tells you something. I would see that as a red flag if any supplement company owner was driving around Lamborghini. That would tell me either A, they're bullshitting you and they're just marketing, or B, they're making way too much money they should because they're ripping you off in the process. Yeah. So either way, to me, it's a lose-lose situation on that. But N2BM doesn't do that. And they don't have thousands of employees, and they don't have a store where they have to pay a lease and all this stuff. So they could focus just on producing high quality supplements and put the money back, the little money that they do make off their products, they can put it back into sourcing better quality ingredients over time. And N2Guard has improved over time. An example of that is the original N2Guard did not have TUDCA. Today, it does have TUDCA. That's just one example. There's also other ingredients that they've had to switch. There's been ingredients that have been maybe banned or something like that they've had to switch out, and they've improved the formula over time. They don't just put out the N2Guard and just keep it the same for years and years. There's little adjustments that they make, and there's little things that they do to improve the synergy and improve the absorption. And that's what they do very well with all their products. So that's why N2BM, to me, is my favorite supplement company. Mobster touched on that a bit, and we can get into the next topic.
I've said on other shows just how difficult to formulate a product like this really is. If you and I were setting up a company to rival N2BM and specifically to rival this product, what did they have to do back in the day? It's way more difficult. I mean, I've owned a supplement company. If I say I want whey protein in there and I want flavoring and I want the best kind of sweetener and a little bit of coloring, that's really, really easy to do, Steve. It's nothing. It was super easy back in the day. The biggest issue we had was going out and trying the different flavor samples. And the only issue I had with that is I think I had 25 in one afternoon, Steve. It was slightly over the top with all the different flavors I tried. When you come to a product like N2Guard, you need to, for example, and I've discussed this, make sure that you've got the right kind of ingredient. You go, oh, I'm going to have this particular ingredient, but it needs to be leaf. It can't be the stem. It needs to be one that's standardized so that the active part of that ingredient is of a level that it has to be absolute minimum amount of that level, and so on, right? And then it goes, right, that's one ingredient. Now, but I want 44 ingredients. I want to put all these ingredients together in one product. I can't have these fucking horse pills, so it has to be multiple capsules. And I know, for example, with the two leading products they made, including N2Guard, they had to talk to industry nutritional experts, people who didn't actually own a supplement company, but they knew about these ingredients. They knew about the right place to get these ingredients from. Then you go and sit down with a formulator. And I've discussed on other shows how there's only really, I think, 7 big companies that a lot of which they actually, some of them are great at making product, but they're not actually that good at selling product. I can think of one specifically that you probably never heard of that have actually got 2 or 3 sound products that are in the mum and pop type health food stores in the States. But they were never that good at marketing, and they will make product because they had the knowledge and the machinery and the skill, put it together for companies that we do know the name of because they were heavily marketed. So like Steve says, the Ferrari thing and great adverts in muscle magazines when they used to appear in 4-page adverts in the inside cover of a fold out of a magazine and so on, versus the company that was actually making a product. So one of the issues, for example, you might only be able to source one ingredient literally seasonally, one time a year. So you have to go to a broker and you have to ask that broker to source that ingredient. It has to be the specific kind, standardized. Like I said, this is just one ingredient. And then you have to buy it by the fucking ton. And you're arguing, bidding with a bunch of other companies that want to buy the same ingredient, the quality product that you want. The only way that can be done is with these big formulation type companies. So either you or the formulator invest in tons of this product, freshly packed, etc., to bring to the formulation plant and then put together sometimes 10, 20, 30,000, $100,000 at a time, enough of this batch of products in the right ratios, combined with the other ingredients, having sat down with the industry expert just to produce $100,000 worth of product at a time. And then if you want to do that again because you sold loads, you might not be able to source the ingredient of the quality that you had before. You have to wait until more quality ingredient comes to market and so on. To do that properly in the way that we're discussing is very, very difficult. It's not a question of chemicals. It's not some huge, great Chinese manufacturing plant where they're producing testipinate by the ton as a chemical powder, using this chemical and that chemical in a lab to create it, so on. It's really, really difficult. And like I said, Steve mentioned the word earlier on, synergy. That's that combination. This is the hardest part, I think, Steve, sometimes, because you go, oh, I can get that leaf, I can get that stem, I can get that seed, and I can buy it in January when it comes to the market, and I bid on it, and we've got 3 tons of it. That's great. It's the synergistic effect of combining the ingredients in the right ratios with this ingredient, this ingredient, this ingredient, and I've just managed to get a hold of a batch of that ingredient and putting them all together so that overall effect, the synergistic effect, is exactly what we're looking for. And then we're still going to have people that are doubters, like we said at the beginning of the show. Oh, how does this work? Okay. Sometimes what you'll have is one ingredient that doesn't work as well if it's in the wrong amount when it's combined with another. So there's the difficulty. That's one of the issues. And you're doing that on, as Steve said, that's just to create the product to begin with. And then you'll have people that question if the product's tweaked. So, for example, you could compare N2Guard of today, and if you can find labels of an older product online, you will see there's very, very, very small changes. I think from the top of my head, Steve, and I haven't got that in front of me, I think we're talking about 3 tiny little changes in the last couple of years. And I mean tiny changes, a few milligrams here, this ingredient's been changed for this ingredient. That's like 3 in the last 4 or 5 years, something like that. And again, proof is in the pudding, where all of this is done. And we've had people go, why would, listen, you guys are recommending it. It's not cheap. I've got to spend this amount. Look, and I'll touch on this as well, Steve, because we did this in the show. I called it on another show, an investment in your health. Why are you comfortable with spending $500 as a minimum? It's typically somewhere between $750 and $1,000 per cycle, including the performance enhancing drugs and the ancillaries, and then bitching about a product that's actually going to make your cycle go better. It's actually going to help you recover from the effects that the cycle, especially oral steroids, have had on you. and the ancillaries to a lesser degree. And even as we're discussing today, the idea, bearing in mind the vast majority of our audience are American, the amount that you bastards in the States have to spend on private medical insurance is going to be far in excess of the amount that we're talking about investing in your health today. When we got here, where I live in Wales, Steve, young people will spend the same amount for N2Guard costs for one tub on a Saturday night, getting pissed, getting drunk, and having crap food and taxis home. And that's just the average Joe. That's not a big night out. That's just an average Saturday night out. I would have done it back in the day, Steve, and then they'll moan about the cost of the product like N2Guard, protecting them, benefiting them, enabling them to train harder, enabling them to use PEDs, and so on and so forth. So to me, it's kind of like, listen, guys, again, an investment in your health, benefiting you in the way that we're going to describe. And of course, I'll let Steve talk about the issues of products on cycle, but the focus of today's podcast is the benefits off cycle as well. So talk about the effects of anabolic steroids on cycle, Steve, before we get into the benefits off cycle.
Yeah, and it should be, people need to be aware of this. When you come off steroids, a lot of people might think, not a lot of people, but some people out there think you stop steroids and the next day, boom, it's out of your system. It's like nothing happened. Unfortunately, there's been damage done. There's things that have occurred while you're being on anabolic steroids that have affected your brain, your heart, your liver, your kidneys, your skin, your prostate, on and on and on. Inflammation in the body, your gut health. It all is a domino effect. And, you can get blood work done and you can see that. You could even just go to the drugstore and buy one of those blood pressure cuff things and test your blood pressure at home and see the effects. And what happens is when you run anabolic steroids and you come off, you go into PCT. Now your body's under a lot of stress. Your hormones are changing. Your hormones are trying to bounce back. That's a very stressful situation. And then you come off your PCT and you're still not like magic going to be back to where you were before. You're still going to have elevated blood pressure and cholesterol is still going to be off a little bit. Your liver's still going to be off a little bit. Your kidneys are going to be off a little bit. There's going to be things affecting your gut health, and there's going to be things with your prostate. Your prostate's probably still going to be inflamed a little bit. So you're still not out of the woods. And that's a crucial stage, because during that stage, it sets up your next steroid cycle in the future. So even whether you use steroids in your off cycle or you don't use steroids at all, and you're not using steroids and you want to use N2Guard, it's going to be beneficial to you. Even people who have never touched an anabolic steroid in their life. I know that's how it is in America, Mobster. I could take the typical 50-some-year-old male in America or female, and heart disease is actually the #1 killer among females, by the way. Believe it or not, it's not just males. So it's both genders who have problems with heart health. And you take the average 50, 55-year-old male or female in America, and you get them tested for all these things: kidney function, liver function, heart disease, all this stuff, prostate. You'll see that things are off, even if they never touch anabolic steroids. Now add anabolic steroids to the mix on top of it and see what you're looking at. I mean, my gosh, Mobster, I'm shocked that even bodybuilders are even living as long as they do with all these factors in play. So as much as you try to do everything right, you're still going to be having a lot of problems that the typical 50, 55-year-old overweight American has when you use anabolic steroids. It almost like evens the playing field. So you actually, in some ways worse, depending on how bad you use anabolic steroids. So what you do off cycle is huge when it comes to this, and using N2Guard off cycle is very important. And let me go through a list of things that N2Guard will help you with, and then I'll bring you in, Mobster, because I know you have a lot to say on the subject. Let me give you 10 things that N2Guard does for you. Number 1, increases your immune system. That's really important. Off cycle, let's say you're running a steroid cycle, you get really good gains, you do your PCT, you recover beautifully, now you're off cycle, and then you get hit. You get hit with a bad virus. which turns into a bacterial infection in your chest or something, or pneumonia or something like that, right? Because your immune system wasn't where it needs to be. Now, we all get sick, okay? Even I get sick. I've gotten sick a couple times in the past 10 years, okay? Even Steve gets sick, even though I have a really strong immune system. But at the end of the day, it's how you come out of that. Do I have to take time off from the gym? Yes, I have to take 3 or 4 days. It's not the end of the world. It's not a big deal. It actually does my body some good. But let's say your immune system's weak and it turns into something more serious. Now you have to miss 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and on and on. That's a major problem. And your hard fought gains you got on cycle can be wiped away. So immune system, very important. Kidney function. I've seen enough blood work to know your kidneys are going to be strained in this game. And it's not just from the anabolic steroids, it's also from you're constantly building and breaking down muscle, and you're constantly getting in lots of protein day in and day out. That's going to hit your kidneys, and that's what N2Guard helps with. Liver, obviously this one. I think we all can agree the anabolic steroids hit your liver, but also other things hit your liver. And aspirin can hit your liver. Alcohol hits your liver. And so our livers are under a lot of pressure, and our liver is a very resilient thing. But believe me, you can look this up. There are tons of people in America today and in Britain. You actually have more of a drinking problem on your side of the pond, Mobster, believe it or not. Ireland and Britain, they drink like crazy,
Absolutely.
but it
Yep.
hammers your liver. So N2Guard is a must. And even if you take care of your liver, you use anabolic steroids, it's gonna hit your liver. Heart health, I talked about it. Cholesterol, blood pressure. I don't have to really talk much more about that. That's important. Your heart health is there's going to be damage from using anabolic steroids. It's going to be damage. So when you come off, it's important. That's the time to get your heart back strong again. That's why you got to do your cardio, which a lot of people neglect. I see people walk into the gym, weight train, and then they leave. I don't see them do any cardio. Maybe they're doing it outside the gym. I have no idea, but I'm suspecting they're not. And that's something we have to work on. So you got to do your cardio, and you got to take your N2Guard to help with heart health. A few more here. Provides a source of essential vitamins and minerals. Did you know that if you're not getting your proper vitamins, you're not going to have energy? If you don't get your proper minerals, you're not going to produce testosterone. So N2Guard will help fill in those blanks when it comes to getting your vitamins and minerals. As Mobster and I have talked about before, even if you're eating your fruits and vegetables as you should, and you're consuming your bone broth as you should, your homemade bone broth, because of the lack of nutrients in our soil, the way we've ravaged our environment and the toxins in our foods and stuff, you still need more. You still need more. Increases energy and vitality. Again, it goes hand in hand with that. Balances hormones, including estrogen and testosterone. Your estrogen and testosterone are going to be haywire on cycle and post cycle. Repairs and grows healthier cells. Helps absorption. That's an important one. And then digestive aid. That's a very important one. If you have bad gut health, then you're in trouble. The gut is the brain of the body. Your gut is going to control how much success you have when it comes to bodybuilding. Bodybuilders for years have been really, really successful at bodybuilding. And then what happens? They fall off a cliff. That's why, because their gut health gets so bad that now they can't function properly anymore. So gut health is important, and digestive aid is important, being able to properly digest your food. So not only you got to watch out what you're putting in your body, but digestive aids are very, very crucial. And I always keep enzymes on hand. I always keep activated charcoal on hand in case something goes wrong. Maybe I eat something I shouldn't, whatever. It's very important to have steady bowel movements and make sure things are coming out of your body cleanly. And that's what N2Guard helps you with. So really across the board, Mobster. So go ahead on that a little bit, touch on that, and then we'll start getting into some of our favorite ingredients in N2Guard. Maybe you can start us off on that.
Right. So here's the thing, right? And I'm going to focus specifically on the off cycle aspects. So I made some notes before we started the show, but I'm going to touch on one which is an on cycle and sometimes an off cycle issue. Right? And I'm thinking specifically, Steve touched on it briefly earlier when he was talking about skin health. And ironically, as Steve was doing that, I noticed they post on the forum asking about suggestions for assistance with acne. And you and I did a show a month or so ago, Steve, when we talked about Sam Sulek. And I think we said it was a Sam Sulek controversy. And some of the pictures we'd seen of Sam had him on chocolate milk. We see him eating fast food. And one or two of the photographs that stood out in my mind was the goddamn horrendous, maybe enhanced, I don't know, maybe the shop had been photoshopped a little bit, edited away, but the horrendous back knee. The skin on his back was bad. And I've actually seen a few examples recently in a few other Instagram bodybuilders when they were talking about something like that. And ironically, it's for the younger guys. And there's an issue with puberty, of course, in terms of you're on steroids. It's like being puberty all over again. You are eating junk food and expecting great results. And then, of course, what does your body do? It's trying to get rid of the crap that you've put in. And one of the ways it does that is sweating, and oils and toxins come out via your skin. It's not the only way. We know, for example, and Steve touched upon the benefit of N2Guard. One of them is digestion. And we know, for example, I'm a great example of this, Steve. If I eat any kind of chocolate that isn't white chocolate, I can get away, I think, with the rose stuff, the caramel type stuff, but I cannot have milk chocolate, and I can't have dark chocolate. I used to be able to do that when I was a kid. So the moment I have anything that's got chocolate in it, or I have chocolate specifically, it upsets my gut health. And that's part of me as an older person, and just, you know, the way that my body's changed. What would be the point of me killing myself in the gym, training like a motherfucker, trying to lift these huge weights, and try and knock the shit out of the ivory needle at the same time, because I've eaten something that tasted really nice, but it was just goddamn bad for me. And how many of us eat crappy food when we know what we should be eating? I see people post about this all the time, Steve, saying, I don't know what a good diet is. Yes, you fucking do. You know damn well that eating fresh fruit and vegetables benefits you, but you don't want to because mummy never made you. So you're supposed to eat that stuff. You know damn well that eating organic stuff is just good for the fucking animal, never mind good for you, and so on and so forth, right? And then, of course, I'm going to get specifically into other benefits. So if I want to go to the gym, now I train for strength, but if I train for strength or muscle building or fitness purposes, and I want to take my shit seriously, I am arguably stressing the fuck out of my body. I am, right? If I run 5 miles and someone else run 1 mile, I'm putting more stress on my body than the other person. If I want to be muscular compared to the average person, I'm putting more physical stress on myself. Now, there are obviously, and this is a good example again, Steve, just emotional stress. If I go through a divorce, I'm going to fuck with my immune system. And how many of you are sitting in arguably polluted environments, eating crappy food, and this is the average Joe especially, because I don't think it applies to our listeners, getting stressed over bills and debts and God knows what else. And then you'll end up with grey hair early because your body's stressed. You'll end up with lines around your eyes because your body's stressed. You'll end up with dry skin or oily hair or back knee like I've just talked about. And that's just a normal person. And we're in the gym, we're killing it. We're also arguably, Steve, taking more protein than perhaps doctors and nutritionists would recommend. And that's a huge debate, perhaps for another time. But again, they would say you're going to be stressing your body because you're taking more protein in. They would argue about the indicators in our blood tests. Creatinine springs to mind, and I discussed this briefly with Steve in the pre-show when I said it's a marker for sometimes if we wasn't consuming high amounts of creatine and or protein, it would be a bad marker in our blood test for an arguably a marker for liver and kidney issues. But of course, we are using creatine and we are taking excesses of protein. And then, for example, the restrictive diet that some athletes put themselves on. And I'm thinking specifically again, Steve, and it doesn't have to be on cycle, it can be off cycle too, where you're literally just having 3 or 4 things a day: fish, chicken, and rice, fish, chicken, and rice. Again, you might be lacking in vitamins. And we want our bodies to do crazy things. We want 8% or less body fat. We want 800-pound fucking squats like I do. We want 400-pound bench presses. We want 20-inch arms, and we are stressing the fuck out of everybody. And this is off cycle specifically. And that's without your daily stresses, your normal things from work, the boss giving you shit. Can you pay all your bills at the end of the month? Can you make the payments on your car? Are you sitting in a polluted environment? Do you work in a workshop? Do you live 5 minutes from a steel foundry or a coal mine? Are you drinking clean water daily, and so on and so forth, right? So, and that's with the stresses of training that the listeners of this show enjoy it. We want to be hard training motherfuckers that are going to get great results. And the only way we can do that is if we are as healthy as we can make ourselves be. Now, we will get into the meat and potatoes, if we've got time at the end of the show, of the benefits of the healthy lifestyle with regards to food and hydration and air filters and water filters, if we've got time. But again, just imagine the stresses that you put your body under on a daily basis, like Steve said, whether that's recreational drugs, whether that's alcohol consumption, poor water, bills, and all the daily stresses, and then you physically hammer your body too. So you know for yourself, if you're majorly stressed, you're more likely to get a cold or the sniffles. You're more likely to get spots. You're more likely to get acne. And you know that from personal experience. Each and every one of the listeners has had a feeling run down, overworked, doing crazy amounts of overtime. You're going to get stressed. And that's just physically stressed. The wife's nagging you, your partner's nagging you, you've got a divorce coming up, you feel run down again. And that's that's emotional stress. And you know these things from personal experience, listeners, because we know our audience. That's the realities of life. How can you then argue that you're not stressing your body if you go to the gym and train crazy hard? So there are absolute benefits to looking after your organ health, to enable you to recover from training, to enable you to deal with those stresses. So let's talk. Let me touch upon one, Steve, and this is specific, and it's actually a very common ingredient in a lot of products. And it springs to mind, Steve, straightforward, good old-fashioned vitamin C. Vitamin C is amazing for dental health. I'm thinking of scurvy back in the day, but it's actually, ironically, fantastically good for your skin health. Now, that's whether you rub lemon juice onto yourself or you consume vitamin C. That's real simple, very, very straightforward. And N2Guard contains 250 milligrams of it. And I'll let you read this out. Great for immune health, again, that helps us deal with the stresses of life and training. And other things like a heart and skin too has been shown to fight cancer. Again, that's in vast amounts. There's actually an argument against that, Steve. But I'm thinking just for skin health here. Another one for skin health. And again, the back knee that I touched upon, and the arguments for stress and the effect on your skin. Vitamin D in the form of 100 intravenous units. Living in dark parts of the world, for example, where I live, we're not a million miles away from the Arctic Circle, Steve. So we don't quite get into the really dark stuff, but it can be quite grey and miserable in winter time, and the effect that sun has on our health and our mood and our temperament. Again, in this case, for our specific skin health. Again, deficient. It's very easy to be deficient. It's in the modern times. We're covered up most of the time, and a lot of us go a little bit too far in the other direction with regards to the issues of sun on our skin and cancer health issues. And so we've actually gone probably a little bit too far with the factor 50. Not everywhere, but certainly where I live, wouldn't really need it as that much. And again, Steve, it helps with a healthy muscular system and also helps with our bone health. And again, guys, we're in the gym stressing the fuck out of our bones. I certainly am. That stuff bending under load, dear Steve. And I think it's my case, especially my joints. Give the listeners a couple more, and I'll come back with a couple more again.
Yeah, and one of them that I really like, Mobster, is going to be vitamin B12. And a lot of people who N2Guard is really good because a lot of us have grown up eating, a lot of things like cereals and stuff like that. And we've developed these types of, I'm not going to call them allergies. I'm going to call them more like sensitivities toward things like gluten and soy and dairy and things like that in our food. So for me, very, very important that they have the vitamin Bs, the vitamin B6, vitamin B12. And these are included in N2Guard. And vitamin B6, look, it's great for your brain. It's great for your immune health. Vitamin B12, fatigue, off cycle. A lot of people complain, I just don't have the energy off cycle. When I'm on steroids, I'm hyped, I'm motivated to go to the gym. I don't have the energy. So B12 is huge as well. So N2Guard has you covered with those B vitamins. I have a lot of respect for the B vitamins. Another one is hawthorn berry and turmeric root. These are both things found in nature. And it's not like you can walk in your woods behind your house and find these. These are in certain parts of the world. Now, some people actually will grow these. A lot of people like to use turmeric because it helps with inflammation and stuff, their knees, their elbows. So this is a great one. for that. And it's great as an antioxidant. And then hawthorn berry is really, really good for your heart health. So these are included in N2Guard. You can't just go to the grocery store and buy turmeric root and sprinkle some on your food and be like, oh yeah, this is going to cure my knee. No, it's got to be in this form. It's got to be an N2Guard has 125 milligrams per serving of good quality turmeric root, and that's gonna help you. And it's combined with other things in here as well. I think it's a really crucial one to use, Mobster. And I'll do one more too, because I don't want to miss this one, taurine. And taurine is an important one. You might notice in some of your energy drinks, which I hope you guys aren't drinking too much energy drinks, because I'm not a fan of them.
Sugar. Yeah.
I'm not a fan of stimming yourself up before a workout.
No.
But you notice that taurine's included. There's a reason for that. Taurine is a really good supplement for pumps and cramps and stuff like that. So it really, really helps your body when you're training. It's gonna help your workouts, and it's gonna help balance things out in your body. So it's a really good ingredient. A lot of you who are using oral steroids on cycle, you use the oral steroids on cycle, you'll notice, oh my God, I get these crippling pumps. Well, N2Guard will help because it does have that taurine. And then off cycle, it's going to help you for the same reasons. Go ahead, Mobster. Name a couple of
Yeah, I mean, another one which springs to mind, Steve, and a lot of our listeners would have seen evidence, occasional news articles, etc., referencing this, and that's the benefits of garlic in your diet, and specifically here, garlic fruit extract in the form of 50 milligrams. And I'll read this out again, Steve. A potent antioxidant that helps with brain and heart health. Guys, you absolutely know it might make your breath stink if it's in the form of a garlic on your food, but we know and have known for a very, very long time. It's almost common knowledge now, Steve, how beneficial foods garlic is. But how many of us are having this on a daily basis? Very, very few. I might have something with garlic in it once a week, Steve. So the idea that I'm having something on a daily basis is going to help me absolutely stands out. They've got boron amino acid chelate, 20 milligrams. And this is actually a booster along with zinc, which is included as a mild booster. If you're not using their other leading product, HC Generate, the testosterone boosters, actually going to help with testosterone health. And again, we are stressing our bodies. We're training crazy hard. We're probably in between cycles because that's the majority of our listeners. That's the profile. So again, something that's going to help you with testosterone health is an absolute must. Something else, Steve, and I actually did an article on this, or should I say, had an article submitted to my little magazine back in the day, coenzyme Q10 in the form here of 10 micrograms. And I'll read the description here and then I'll get into the other bit as well. One of the most wonderful heart health supplements you can put into your body. Listen, guys, I had an older reader of my magazine send me an article, and the coenzyme Q10 was described probably slightly like it sounds like marketing, but it was almost like a God-given form of energy for the older, and I'm talking about 60 plus in that particular example, athletes. And they were taking quite a lot of this product, Steve, just to have that sort of sense of energy that they used to have as a younger man. It's difficult to get the right ratios. You have to go out and get a solid product and so on and so forth. So to get in the right doses there, Steve. And another one, and look, this also applies to the older athletes, but it will also arguably apply to the younger people because of the reasons I stated earlier. Apple pectin in the form of 250 milligrams, and great for digestion and heart health. Let me focus on our digestion. I said that we have poor diets in Western society. Steve touched on it as well. I've talked about somehow that we can restrict our diets as bodybuilders and strength athletes with the chicken, the rice, and so on and so forth, especially if we're dieting or trying to maintain a certain level of shape, sub 10%, 8% body fat, and so on and so forth. And again, look, even if it's just the sheer volume of fucking food that we sometimes put in, and I use myself as an example, Steve, 4,000 something calories a day, just to get our shit done at a high performance level, you're asking a lot of your digestion. So there's an obvious one. And this one, and again, Steve's touched upon the word inflammation earlier on when he talks about joints. Evening primrose oil, 60 milligrams, great for joint pain and arthritis. Look, and I trained legs this morning. I mentioned it to Steve in the pre-show. I said, and I quote, I'm kind of fucked, Steve, after leg workout. 737 pounds on the lever squat, Steve. Am I putting pressure on my hips and my knees? Of course I fucking am. That's a lot of weight to be bearing down on my spine and onto my hips and onto my knees. And I will be 60 this year. Do you not think I borderline pushing my bone health? Of course I am. So I need to make sure that I'm including stuff in my diet, in the supplements that I use, that benefits me. I take a solid joint product all the time, but I need to be aware of the stresses. Some of you do way more volume for shoulders and biceps and triceps, so you've got that shoulder joint and the elbow joint and your knee joint and hip joints, way more volume in me. So the levels of inflammation around your joints, around your connective tissue will be higher than mine. And I'm doing enough with the weights that I'm using. So you absolutely want something that's going to benefit your joints. And again, this actually osteoarthritis or osteoarthritis, I think I said it right, for the female lifters. If you're getting older again, ladies do tend to have more issues with this as you hit the menopause. So again, anything that's going to help you maintain bone health, maintain that so you don't get the discomfort that comes with being postmenopausal, which is literally the leaching of calcium from your bones. And it basically means your bones are getting weaker as you get older. If you train, you keep those bones strong, but you still have to maintain the health, especially around the joints, because you don't get bloody arthritis in the middle of the bone. It's always around the joints, always around the part of the bone that's being moved, and so on and so forth. Give the listeners another couple to think about, Steve.
This is a huge one, polycosanol, and I've read several articles about this one lately. And one of the things that this stuff does beautifully is it decreases the stickiness of cells in the blood known as platelets. And this is huge because, we see when you're coming off cycle, how many people they'll run steroids, they'll come off cycle, and then their cholesterol levels will never get back to where they were before, because the anabolic steroid cycle screwed them up so much. So again, when you're off cycle, as I said earlier, very, very important to balance things out and help your body recover properly. Otherwise, you're just going to hop on cycle with bad heart health, and you're just going to make the heart health situation worse and worse. It doesn't make any sense. Dandelion root extract and, parsley leaf. These are both gentle and natural diuretics. They're not diuretics that flush water out of your entire system, but they're diuretics that, they gently do it. So how many times we've seen guys post, they ran their cycle, they PCT, they came off, and then in between, they had a rebound in water retention or a rebound in estrogen. That happens a lot. And even if it's a little amount, you're carrying just a little amount of water retention.
Even just being mildly inflamed, see, from the stresses of training or whatever else will cause an inflammatory response. And an inflammatory response includes holding water around the inflamed area.
Yeah, and so it's a very important to have that taken care of. I mean, water retention, we need some water retention. That's normal. But when you have excess water retention, it's just going to make you more tired. It's going to give you insomnia. It's just not good. It's not good. It's going to stress out your heart more. It's going to stress out your organs more. So this is another excellent ingredients that were included in N2Guard Mobster. And at the end of the day, like, we got to make sure we take care of it. And you said about joints, omega-3 fatty acids. When has a support supplement such as this included omega-3 fatty acids, which is another thing that we don't get a good
Enough
ratio
of in our diets. Yeah,
it's not just that we don't get enough, it's that we get the wrong ratios of omega-6 versus omega-3. And that's the main problem in America. It needs to be even, but we're getting 20 to 1 and sometimes 20 to 0, as if that's even a mathematical formula, Mobster. People don't get any omega-3 fat. I go through someone's diet and sit down with them and tell me what you ate today, and I'd be like, look, you didn't get a single good fat in your diet today. That's not good. All these fats you're getting are from restaurant food and fast food. These are all refined oils that we're getting. So this is a very, very good thing. There's so many good ingredients, Mobster, in this.
Let me give you one more, Steve. And this is just something because I've touched upon this on other shows, and I probably even mentioned it at the beginning of this show. So that I'm going to try to pronounce this properly. Indole-free carbinol, 50 milligrams, found in vegetables, helping with hormone issues and also can suppress cancer growth. So listen, and I'm particularly aiming this comment at younger listeners, because we're seeing way more younger listeners, younger members on the forums, who quote unquote don't eat veggies. I don't like veggies, so they're asked about green powders and so on and so forth. And I'm like, motherfucker, eat your veggies. Listen, I'm a granddad, so I've done the thing where my daughter wasn't eating all the vegetables, and I think my mum did it to me when I was a kid. So we go through that stage, Steve, of only liking sweet things and not liking peas and carrots and leafy vegetables like cabbage and so on and so forth. And at some point, they've had to sit you down and say, this is the food that's on the table. It's good for you. It's going to make your hair curly. All the usual bullshit. The reality of this situation is we know, even those people that are asking about the green powders know that vegetables are good for you. And especially if they're locally grown, organic, and so on and so forth. So it can be really, really difficult for some people that haven't had that encouragement. And they find it that they're so used to fast food, Steve, you've touched on it, covered with sauces, fried, treated, etc., 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 and so on and so forth. And they struggle with the idea of it. So if you do struggle with the idea of eating it, you should still fucking eat it, get it down your necks. But N2Guard's including an ingredient in there that's going to be something that's found in the vegetables that will benefit. So that's super, super important. Another one, Steve, and this is just for heart health. Red yeast rice, 300 milligrams. We know that there's a difference between certain kinds of rice. We know that, for example, brown rice is better than white rice. In the case of red yeast rice, we can talk about the benefits for heart health. Tudka, something else, Steve, and I also want to touch on one more, which was just grabbed my eye a few seconds ago. Right, so both Tudka and milk thistle seed extract, and in the case of milk thistle, 300 milligrams. Right, here's something that any of you that have paid any attention to the bodybuilding world of the last 5-10 years will have absolutely heard of both milk thistle and Tudka. And the reasons why, this is probably the number one and the number two ingredients that will benefit your liver, Steve. And one effect, I think the case of milk thistle also helps balance insulin levels. And I think I'll get Steve to come in a second or two to talk about insulin resistance. And there's one more ingredient that he can discuss specifically in that regard. So if you've paid any attention to the bodybuilding world, you've heard about these two ingredients, and you know, even 5 minutes of research, you know that the stresses are specifically oral steroids and even injectable steroids have as an impact on your liver and to a lesser degree your kidneys. We know that they have other effects on your heart and so on and so forth. So, you know, these two ingredients, probably number one and number two in terms of the beneficial, being beneficial is keeping those organs healthy and enabling you to do the cycles that you've done. And again, as I said earlier on, because we're focusing off cycle, to still enabling you to the stresses of the high protein diet and the stresses of the training and lifestyle stresses in general, that's going to have an impact on your organs, but especially the liver and the kidneys to a lesser degree. Talk about insulin resistance, Steve, and I'm thinking specifically here of L-glutathione, and I think there's one other one, in fact, the one I've just mentioned, Steve, with regards to the milk thistle, with regard to insulin levels and insulin sensitivity and the ingredients in N2Guard that benefit those.
Yeah, and we have a big problem with that in America, Mobster. You have it over there too, but we have it way worse here. And look at that bottom line, it's eating too much too often, eating a lot of refined sugars, eating a lot of bad carbs. It's like every day is a holiday. Every weekend is a holiday in America. Every weekend we have big parties and barbecues and gotta have dessert, gotta have some cake, gotta have the cookies, gotta have the ice cream every day in America. We can eat what we want when we want, 24/7. You pick up your phone, hit a couple buttons, and you got someone delivering food to your door. I think it's called Uber Eats or something. I've never used that shit, but a lot of people
Me
do.
neither, Steve, and we've got it here.
Yeah.
We've got 3 or 4 companies now,
Yeah.
including them. Never used it.
I never used it. Never used it.
I want junk. I've got to go out and fucking get it, Steve.
Yeah.
Because if you can have it delivered, you're not
It's
even going to
junk.
get the fucking steps in to go and buy it.
It's junk food. Anything they deliver to your door is going to be junk food, obviously. So please, like, guys, you guys and gals out there, you got to prep your own food. You got to take care of your food at home, and you got to prep it. You got to know what's going into it. So it's huge. Insulin resistance has become a huge problem in America, for that reason. And we're not, it's going to become harder and harder for you to lose fat, even if you decide later on, what? I'm going to eat like shit for a few years and then later on I'll worry about it. How many people do? Smokers tell me that all the time. Like, oh, I'm not worried about it. Once I start smoking, my lungs will clear itself, blah, blah, blah. No. Start it today. Not years from now. Start it today. Because the longer you go, the more damage you're going to do to your lungs smoking. And the longer you eat a shitty diet, the more insulin resistant you're going to get. And at some point, you're actually going to become a type 2 diabetic, which, I think the latest statistics, Mobster, 24% of Americans are type 2 diabetics. That's pretty fucking pathetic.
It's an issue here, Steve. What
Yeah.
they call pre-diabetic symptoms, and we've got
Yeah. It's
an enormous proportion of
33%
type
of
twos.
Americans are either pre-diabetic or diabetic. Among your generation,
Yep,
Mobster,
yep,
that
yep.
percentage is a majority. So, as much as you want to say the young generation doesn't eat their vegetables, I would argue your generation doesn't eat the vegetables. Your generation is the extremely unhealthy ones. I know a lot of seniors. I know friends of who have parents and grandparents. I've never seen them eat a fruit or vegetable in their life. Never. And in fact, they've literally gone like 20 years without eating a fruit or vegetable. So it's
It's kind
that.
of ironic. It's kind of ironic, Steve. But the supermarkets here literally have the fresh fruit and vegetable section at the front of the supermarkets, and yet you, if you go to the fast food section and the frozen section, it's always going to be busier than the fresh fruit section. And I'm trying to think now. I think we've got one greengrocer, so fresh fruit and vegetables, in our local market in a town that has 50,000 people in. So I guarantee that most people are getting frozen fruit and vegetables over fresh fruit and vegetables. And the local greengrocers should be absolutely killing it market wise and isn't versus the supermarkets. And that's just to give you an idea. So, yeah, let's
You
talk
got to
about
shop somewhere.
dosing now.
You got to
Yeah,
shop
sorry.
somewhere where people eat healthy. And I go to places like health food stores and stuff. People are eating. So there's constant inflow of fresh fruits and vegetables and fresh and good quality meats and stuff because people buy them. But if you go to
So let me give one more thing, Steve, on that. Actually, funny enough, and this was to do when we had the whole COVID issue, and one of my neighbours who were new for the gym had an allotment, so they were growing their own fresh fruit and vegetables, but they wanted to get some stuff they couldn't get hold of delivered. And I said, do you know what the best thing to do is? Go to an old-fashioned fresh fruit and vegetable shop, buy it regularly, and at some point ask for the stuff they haven't got in stock because you've built up a relationship with them you're never going to do with a supermarket. They will buy stuff in if there's a demand for it. They will get you, if you're good regular customer, products. And this applies to bodybuilders especially. So for example, Steve, most fresh fruit and places you would sell your potatoes, but what do you want? You want the yams and you want the sweet potato and you want the local organic stuff. So if you had that relationship, you'd be able to do that. And be able to do that because you're supporting a small local business and they see you as a valued customer. And that's just common sense. It's the same thing if you're buying a properly done chicken breast or properly done trimmed meat or lean cuts of beef, etc., or even a fish shop, but the same thing. Supporting a local business who will buy products that you know, for example, that pro bodybuilders are using, and they'll sell it to you by the fucking caseload. I'm thinking of Jay Cutler buying half a fucking cow back in the day, Steve, and getting put into his freezer. That's just a great way to help a local business to get organic, good local produced products, food, meat, whatever, and have them support you. And heck, Steve, if you actually make a name for yourself, they might even fucking sponsor you with that product. So then there's a quid pro quo right there, Steve. So there's an outstanding tip. Let's talk about, I think now, Steve, before we run out of time, the differences between on-cycle use of N2Guard and off-cycle use for benefits for the listener before we get into a final tips and a disclaimer.
Yeah, and really off cycle, you can stretch out the bottle a little bit. Each bottle contains enough where you take 7 caps a day for 30 days. On cycle, if it's a regular steroid cycle, 7 caps is good. If it's a harsher cycle, you can go a little higher, 8 caps, 9 caps, 10 caps. But off cycle, you can go a little lower. If you can afford to run the 7 caps a day, that's beautiful. If you're stretched a little bit in your budget, you can run 3 to 4 caps a day, and that will stretch out the bottle where each bottle will last 2 months. So really, it's not expensive. Look what's in it, 44 different ingredients. So really there's no excuse why you can't use it. Some of these ingredients that Mobster and I have listed, you can look up how much they cost. They
Yeah,
cost more than
individually. Yeah,
N2Guard costs.
yeah,
I've
yeah.
seen prices like $120 for some of these products, like
That's for Tucker on its
polycalcinol.
own, Steve, and taurine on its own. Yeah.
And at cheap, even if you get these ingredients cheap, $10, $15, $20 a bottle for these ingredients. So I mean, we're talking about 44 ingredients in this. So really it pays for itself. So at the end of the day, if you're running 3, 4 caps a day and you're having it last 2 months off cycle, that's not expensive for what N2Guard costs. That's nothing. You're investing, and it's going to help you on your next cycle get better results on your next cycle. It's going to keep you more
Yep.
insulin sensitive, so you're able to burn fat easier. It's going to help you, give you a healthier body.
Less likely to need acne treatments if your skin health is good. Less likely to visit the doctors if you're handling your stress better.
Yeah, it's going to allow you to get more out of your health and your cycle and everything. So it really, to me, Mobster, it's a bargain for what N2Guard sells for. It's
when
a
you
bargain.
start thinking, it's the same price, Steve, as having an Uber Eats meal delivered to your house for you and your family for one evening. Or as I said, go into Cardiff here in South Wales and having a good night out with your mates. One Saturday night is what it's going to cost you for a bottle. One. That's the whole month of health. So that makes a lot more sense to me. I want to touch upon a couple of little things before we get to the disclaimer. Look, guys, you're training, you're listening to this show, you're aiming to get the best out of your cycles. You're aiming to get the best out of your training with your cycle. You're aiming to get the best retention of the muscle and the strength that you gained on and off cycle. And you obviously, as we say, we talked about the cost of medical insurance and medical treatment, both here in America. We know that it can be a little bit expensive sometimes to go organic and go out and get the fresh fruit and vegetables. We understand that, but ultimately, this is an investment in you. It's an investment in your health, right? So it's super, super important. Little tips like, and I touched upon this already, the organic fresh fruit and vegetables, locally produced. Even I can buy a half a sheep or a whole sheep from a farm that's about 5 minutes from where I am right now, Steve. 5 minutes in the car. There's another one 10, 15 minutes down. You can practically pick the one that I want to eat. And I know where it's been fed. I know how it's been produced. I know how they've treated it. So those things are important to a lot of people. And it means that you're supporting a local business in that particular regards. And during COVID, Steve, we used to get a company called Pro Muscle Meats was delivering locally. And I know that butcher was a former rugby player. I know that his son lifted weights and came and visited me when they were dropping meat off. So we had that relationship going again. Those things are important, and they understand. Literally, Pro Muscle Meats was the number one product back in the day, was chicken breast for bodybuilders. So that's how that business has become established, and that's going to benefit anybody that lifts weights. We know that chicken breast and fresh fruit and vegetable are fantastically beneficial, but it's obvious about getting out into the sun for your vitamin D. It's obvious that you should be getting out into the fresh air. If you do hit the gym, you should be handling your other stress as well. And obviously, there's one last tip, Steve: hydrate, hydrate, hydrate. Drink more fresh, ideally filtered water if you possibly can, because that's going to help you too. And obviously, flushing the system is going to be beneficial to your organ health too. Please note, we are not doctors, and the opinions are ours. It's our view and based on our experience and views on the topic. A podcast for informational purposes and entertainment only. The freedom of speech and the First Amendment applies.